I want to start with something that's a little heavier than normal. And I want to talk about Boko Haram. And it's really worth us talking about because of the stark contrast of how shocked we are in certain circumstances and how complacent we are in other circumstances. UNICEF reported today out of Senegal. They reported that out of all of the suicide bombings occurring with Boko Haram, 1 in every 5 suicide bombings is committed by, or committed by is probably the best word, by a child. The youngest reported bomber is thought to have been 8 years old. And so far, Boko Haram has used 44 children in suicide attacks last year alone. You would remember Boko Haram is the group that kidnapped over 300 young girls from school, and immediately afterwards about a dozen or so escaped, but the rest of them are still missing. It is reported that some of them possibly are being used as human shields. We have a lot of emphasis in our international community on ISIS, and the big question is, what are we going to do as Americans for to stop ISIS? And very little conversations in terms of American intervention, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we don't need to get involved with everything, but our eyes and our ears, it's like out of sight, out of mind. Certain segments of the world, particularly in Africa, we turn a blind eye to the suffering that's being caused by groups like Boko Haram. Over 910 schools have been destroyed. Over 1,500 have been forced to close. 611 teachers have been executed. 19,000 other teachers have been forced to leave. They have essentially, they've kidnapped over 2,000 civilians. They've essentially brought chaos and terror to that entire region, killing thousands of people. And much of nothing is being done about it. Not from our perspective. And when I read the headline that they're using children as bombers, as young as 8 years old, there is I don't like to speak in terms of good and evil, particularly when it comes to world affairs. And even more so, I'm more reluctant to do it in regards to politics. But when you see things like this, all of our emphasis, all of our thoughts, all of our energy is being placed on ISIS. But what are we going to do about Boko Haram? I mean, they are vicious. They are just as deadly. They may not have as big ambitions as ISIS, but the lives that are being taken and the people that are being killed, just as ruthless. And it's this is just the next level. 1 in 5 suicide bombings committed by Boko Haram has been forced. A child has been forced to participate in it as young as 8 years old. I don't know. I don't know if I want to draw that into the bigger conversation of the role that America plays in the international community. But I do want to point out the selective role that we play in the international community. If nothing else, we do have selective participation in a lot of cases. A lot of things we decide to get involved with, and then other things we just completely ignore.